strange and bizarre UFO cases where humans have been subjected to horrid radiation. Interdimensional alien spacemen from distant worlds or planes of existence too complex to fathom. We do indeed live in a weird, unexplainable world with mysteries around every corner. It's incredible that most do not believe any strange phenomenon until they witness it themselves. Consider these cases that changed the minds of many when they came to public knowledge. Saucers zipping about is not too unusual, but what makes them fly is a total mystery. Some have speculated they use a type of nuclear propulsion. If so, then this case from 1886 is very intriguing. In October 1886, a family in the Venezuelan town of Maracaibo suffered a strange and hideous fate. During an intense lightning storm, their small hut suddenly became bathed in a dazzling white light. The air outside was reportedly humming, and the inside of the hut filled with a smoky smell. Almost immediately, all 9 family members were overcome by a fit of vomiting, as large lesions erupted on their skin. But the worst was yet to come. After 9 days had passed and the encounter already begun to grow dim in their minds, the family suddenly began to lose their hair. Whole sections of their skin sloughed off, and all 9 became covered in hideous sores. At the same time, the trees around their hut withered and died. The family were taken to a hospital where no more is known of their fate. However, we can hazard a guess. They almost certainly died. The symptoms above are more or less identical to those caused by a massive blast of radiation, described almost 50 years before anyone knew what radiation poisoning was. What caused the death of that Venezuelan family remains unknown, but some flying saucer enthusiasts have claimed that radiation from a spacecraft is the only plausible answer. Whatever the truth, there's no denying that this story is the very definition of an unexplained phenomenon. It's one thing when 1 or 2 people observe a UFO, but when hundreds, even thousands of people witness UFOs, it's hard to ignore. Multiple mass UFO sightings throughout history have given pause to more than a few skeptics. They occur more frequently than you might imagine. On November 2nd in 1957, a fiery object was seen over Texas. At about 11 p.m. that evening in the town of Levelland, Texas, police received 15 frantic phone calls from local residents about a mysterious object in the sky. In an Associated Press account, one of the witnesses, a 30-year-old farm worker and Korean War veteran, described the object as a flash of light flying overhead with a rush of wind, and said that it had apparently caused the lights and engine of his truck to go dead. Other witnesses described the craft as blue and green and egg-shaped, and said that it abruptly morphed into a fireball before rising straight up and disappearing. During World War II, American pilots often reported seeing Foo Fighters, strange glowing orbs that circled and chased their fighter planes. Governments around the world would begin detailed records of these encounters, as some believed they belonged to other enemy countries. The Great Los Angeles Air Raid occurred on February 24, 1942, when a UFO strayed too close to the coastline. It was less than 3 months after the United States entered World War II as a result of the Japanese Imperial Navy's attack on Pearl Harbor, and 1 day after the bombardment of Elwood on the 23rd. Something flew over the coastline, causing the military to go on alert. Air raid sirens sounded throughout Los Angeles County on that night. A total blackout was ordered, and thousands of air raid wardens were summoned to their positions. At 3:16 a.m., the 37th Coast Artillery Brigade began firing 12.8-pound anti-aircraft shells into the air at the reported object. Over 1,400 shells would eventually be fired. Pilots of the 4th Interceptor Command were alerted but never ordered to fly. The artillery fire continued sporadically until 4:14 a.m. To this day, no one knows for sure what they were shooting at. Images taken on that night clearly show a saucer-shaped object hovering within the intense beams of the military spotlights. A shape-shifting, vanishing ball of fire streaking over a major population center sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. But the Kolkata fireball was very real, terrifying the city's 4.5 million residents in 2007. At around 3:30 a.m., the few souls unlucky enough to be awake saw a gigantic object streaking through the Indian sky. A national news report claimed that hundreds saw it pass, with one man even capturing it on his camcorder. According to Indian reports, scientists were completely baffled by the object, which seemed to radiate a halo of colors as it passed overhead. Although most observers assumed it was a meteorite, the object's ability to change shape throws a particularly irksome spanner into that theory, leaving the possibility of an alien visit wide open. The United States of America is not the only government suppressing UFO activity. After all, the ET issue is an international conspiracy. Recently, world governments such as Brazil, Great Britain, New Zealand, Denmark, and others have released some of their hidden files. However, these files are carefully selected and are only sighting reports. They do not delve into the deeper issue of direct contact. Governments are doing this simply to appease the growing frustration of the people concerned with the UFO issue. Nothing substantial has been released so far. For example, we know that pilots, both military and commercial, have observed UFOs numerous times at close range. Fighter planes from the 1950s to present day regularly observed and have filmed UFOs near their aircraft. After landing, this gun camera footage is packaged and sent through the chain of command to military headquarters and has never been seen by civilians. Multiple retired and active service pilots have testified to this. So where is all this physical evidence? Releasing files and stories is one thing.
releasing footage of saucers in flight displaying aeronautic abilities beyond our capabilities would be shocking and would prove visually the existence of these craft, especially if the footage was taken well before the digital age.
One of the most famous UFO sightings in modern United States history took place in the town of Socorro, New Mexico back in 1964, with the chief witness being none other than a police officer named Lonnie Zamora. Zamora was in pursuit of a speeding car when he saw an object in the sky shaped like an oval and bearing a bizarre red insignia on its side. He claims to have seen this object rise from the ground and take off into the distance, and his story drew tremendous media and government attention, including leading to the CIA filing a report on the incident. Zamora came to be known as something of a kook and retired from the police force shortly after the incident. You know you've made it in the world of mysterious alien encounters when people refer to your UFO sighting as a bona fide incident. Recently, there was a sighting that happened across the western United States during 2015. Government officials were quick to call November 8th's alleged UFO sighting as nothing more than a missile test. But not everyone is buying it. Those who witnessed the bizarre event have come up with some conspiracy theories of their own, blaming the incident on everything from meteor showers to alien contact. California, Nevada, Arizona residents were left stunned after a strange blue light was seen streaking across the sky. Was it a UFO? A meteor? Well, according to government officials, it was nothing more than a routine submarine missile test. But that hasn't stopped some from coming up with their own rationalizations about the incident. Many were also suspicious over the fact that the government didn't announce the missile test ahead of time, and it was conducted over a densely populated city rather than a deserted desert as is typically the case. Suffice it to say, it stirred the beliefs of many as they watched this odd blue UFO-type light streak skyward.
For over a millennium, the United States and governments around the world have actively participated in clandestine operations to keep the UFO truth away from public knowledge. Over the years, many individuals have sacrificed their careers and their lives to get this information out. Countless citizens have been abducted and subjected to cruel medical experiments by certain aliens with their own agenda, and in full cooperation by the governments we elect to protect us. We have a great deal of information available on the UFO situation, yet we have only scratched the surface. For every scrap of information that gets leaked, there are volumes more remaining sequestered away in government vaults. And of the leaked information that makes it out, most of it is mired in debate and tainted with misinformation. Government agencies go out of their way to belittle anyone or any material that purports to tell the truth about the UFO issue. Change is inevitable. No secret can be kept forever. But we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to know? Is it better to live in ignorance than face the truth? How will we handle the truth when it is fully disclosed?
If you're one of those people who thinks aliens are only ever seen by lonely farmhands and drunken hillbillies, prepare to be unnerved. The 1966 Westall Australian encounter was witnessed by over 200 people and provoked a response from both the police and Australian Air Force. On April 6th, pupils and teachers at two schools in a Melbourne suburb watched as a low-flying silver-gray shiny object drifted over an empty field before landing behind some trees. Witnesses described it as looking like a cup turned upside down on a saucer. While both schools are near an airport, staff are well versed enough in aircraft to know it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. When some pupils went to investigate, the craft abruptly took off again, speeding away into the sky. The only traces left were some unusual scorch marks in the forest. What's so truly disturbing about the Westall encounter is the sheer number of witnesses, along with how spread out they were. For such a diverse group to have simultaneously had a mass hallucination is almost as incredible as an explanation of a flying saucer. And that's before we get into the involvement of the Australian government. So, did aliens come to visit Melbourne some 50 years ago? We'll leave it to you to decide. After World War II, the Cold War was warming up, and the U.S. military were painfully aware that foreign nations could fly over our airspace and spy on our advancements. UFO sightings were considered a threat in that they could be invaders, or the hysteria created by UFO sightings could mask an invasion from an enemy nation. The U.S. military and the CIA took UFO sightings seriously, and often fighter planes were on standby to scramble if anything unusual was detected by radar. In fact, events did occur that caused the military to panic and order jets to intercept UFOs over American skies. One such event is when UFOs overflew our nation's capital. From July 19th till the 29th, there were several incidents where UFOs flew over or near the Capitol. Radar confirmed the objects as airliners and fighter pilots chased the UFOs. The objects were seen and tracked on radar multiple times. The sightings of July 26th and 27th also made front-page headlines and even led President Harry Truman to personally call Captain Rupert, head of Project Blue Book, to ask for an explanation of the sightings. Rupert told the president that the sightings may have been caused by a temperature inversion, in which a layer of warm, moist air covers a layer of cool, dry air closer to the ground. This condition can cause radar signals to bend and give false returns. However, Rupert at that time had not yet interviewed any of the witnesses or conducted a formal investigation. The White House concern may possibly have resulted in an order to shoot down the UFOs, as reported in various international news service stories on July 29th of 1952. One such story reported that jet pilots have been placed on a 24-hour nationwide alert against the flying saucers, with orders to shoot them down. An Air Force Public Information Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Moncel Monte, confirmed the directive, stating that the jets are and have been under orders to investigate unidentified objects and to shoot them down if they can't talk them down. This is not the only case where pilots were ordered to shoot down UFOs. An American fighter pilot, U.S. Airman Milton Torres, flying from an English airbase at the height of the Cold War in 1957, was ordered to open fire on a massive UFO that lit up his radar, according to an account published by Britain's National Archives. The fighter pilot said he was ordered to fire a full salvo of rockets at the UFO moving erratically over the North Sea, but that at the last minute, the object picked up enormous speed and disappeared. The pilot said he and another airman were scrambled on the night of May 20th, 1957 to intercept an unusual bogey on radars at a Royal Air Force station at Manston, an airfield at the southeastern tip of England, about 75 miles from central London. This was a flying object with an unusual flight pattern, the pilot said. Ordered to fly at full throttle in cloudy weather, the pilot said he was given the order to fire a volley of 24 rockets at the mysterious object. As he closed in on the object to prepare for combat, the object began to move wildly before fading off his radar. The target gone, the mission was called off, and he returned to base to an odd reception. Torres said he was led to a man in civilian clothes who advised him that this would be considered highly classified and that it would not be discussed with anybody, not even his commander. Though we have pilot reports and other stories about airmen who were ordered to shoot down UFOs but were unsuccessful, we have no idea how many successful incidents have occurred. We do, however, have several crashed UFO reports, so it's logical to assume some of those downed UFOs may be the result of completed missions by pilots to shoot down unidentified flying objects. On the night of March 13, 1997, the Phoenix Lights made history. On that evening, thousands of people in Nevada and Arizona reportedly saw what many described as an immense V-shaped object outlined by 7 lights. Others, however, reported seeing orbs and triangles in the sky as well. Police departments in Phoenix, Tempe, Glendale, and other Arizona cities were jammed with calls from residents. One witness, a man in his 30s named Dana Valentine, said that he and his father both watched as the lights passed 500 feet directly above them. He could see the outline of a mass behind the lights, but couldn't actually see the mass. It was more like a gray distortion of the night sky, wavy, he said. He didn't know exactly what it was, but he knew it was not a technology the public had ever heard of before. The military later claimed that National Guard pilots had released flares while on a training run, but not everyone accepted that explanation. No one accepted the flare explanation because they all said it didn't look like flares. The large UFO was even witnessed by the governor of Arizona. A very credible UFO encounter occurred in the small town of Delphos, Kansas in 1971. This case has never been debunked and is still considered as one of the very best physical trace cases involving a UFO landing. 16-year-old Ron Johnson, along with his dog Snowball, was tending the family sheep when his attention was suddenly drawn to a mushroom-shaped UFO appearing in the night sky. The flying object, metallic with multicolored lights, was hovering approximately 75 feet away from Ron among some trees. Johnson estimated the craft was only a few feet above the ground. He estimated the craft's diameter at 6 to 8 feet. Ron described the craft as making a loud sound, like an old washing machine which vibrates. The glow of the object's bottom increased as it began to rise into the sky. He ran back to the family house to alert his mother and father. The bright glowing object was now even higher in the sky. Ron's parents came running around the side of the house to get a glimpse of the unusual phenomenon. They arrived just in time to see the object, now big as the full moon, as it disappeared from view. The three Johnsons were shocked to see a glowing ring on the ground, right below where the craft had hovered. There was also a glowing material on some of the trees nearby. After touching the ring, Ron's mother's fingers went numb, like she had been given a local anesthesia. After they were sure the craft was not returning, the family settled down for the night. The glowing circle remained overnight. Investigators took soil samples and determined the soil was severely dehydrated and would not hold water. Nothing would grow in the affected area as well. The unusual landing ring remained for several months after the encounter. UFOs are not just a sky phenomenon. They're often seen landing with their pilots emerging to examine the area. Such a case occurred on the 14th of September in 1994. A UFO streaked across the sky over southern Africa. 2 days later, something landed in a schoolyard in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, with 3 or 4 beings beside it, according to journalist Cynthia Hind. This was witnessed by 62 school children who had little or no exposure to TV or popular press accounts of UFOs. Cynthia Hind interviewed them the day after the encounter and had them draw pictures of what they had seen. They saw 3 silver balls in the sky over the school. These disappeared with a flash of light and then reappeared elsewhere. This happened 3 times, and then they started to move down towards the school, with one of them landing or hovering over a section of rough ground made up of trees, thorn bushes, and some brown-gray cut grass with bamboo shoots sticking up out of the ground. After the craft flew away, the children all drew consistent pictures of the UFO and its strange occupants. Scientists now agree that there does exist other planes and dimensions beyond the physical universe, though they admit they know virtually nothing about them. Yet daily, there are UFO sightings that appear so bizarre, so strange, that it is difficult for us to wrap our minds around them. Are aliens using some advanced technology to delve into these layered realms? Or do they do it by accessing some hidden conscious ability within themselves? Strange UFO sightings have occurred frequently in modern times, but if we can believe the scratching of ancient man on cave walls, they are nothing new. Throughout the Southwest, bizarre depictions of strange beings and even their craft have been etched on rock for centuries. These petroglyphs appear to show aliens, some tall and larger than life, meeting early man in unusual circumstances. Further south, we find the Nazca Lines, bizarre inscriptions that can only be viewed from high altitude. Indeed, throughout the world, there exists a multitude of unusual markings that appear to show extraterrestrial beings making contact with man. Who are these beings, and why are they interested in our Earth? how did they travel the vast distances between planets and even galaxies?
At 7 a.m. on the 30th of June in 1908, near the lower Tunguska River in Siberia, a large explosion occurred. The explosion was so massive that it caused damage 400 miles away and was heard even further. For several nights all over northern Europe, the sky glowed enough to light the streets of London. At first, it was assumed that a massive meteorite had collided with the Earth. However, after the Second World War and the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, photos of the cities were compared with aerial photos of the Tunguska blast, and they were stunningly similar. As a result of this, various scientists speculated that a nuclear explosion had taken place over the area, and because no nation possessed a nuclear device at that time, the logical conclusion was that it was from an exploded alien nuclear-powered craft.
The residents of one street in La Rosa, Gran Canaria, reported seeing a gigantic translucent blue sphere hovering just above the ground. Roughly 30 meters in diameter, the sphere supposedly contained two humanoid creatures, vague shadows that could be seen against the stars. According to one witness, things then got even crazier, with the sphere expanding to enormous dimensions before vanishing off into the night sky. In the intervening years, several explanations have been put forward, ranging from meteor effects to a missile test. Yet to this day, people continue to swear they saw this strange orb and the even stranger creatures inside it. Why would aliens travel the vast distances across space just to allow us to take their picture? Are they here for some nefarious agenda we cannot comprehend? Or are they simply passing by with no regard to us as we go about our daily affairs? Who are the aliens, and why are they here? In March of 1983, V-shaped lights were seen in the Hudson Valley. The suburban area about an hour's drive north of New York City was the scene of more than 5,000 UFO sightings from 1982 through 1986, perhaps one of the biggest clusters of incidents in history. One night on March 24th stands out because of the sheer volume. More than 300 residents called a local UFO organization's hotline that night, reporting that they had seen large V-shaped array of lights that moved slowly and almost silently through the sky. Some witnesses got close enough to say that the craft was big enough to be a flying city. Hunt Middleton, a local resident who had just stepped off a bus from New York City at 7:30 p.m., described a row of 6 or 7 extremely bright lights. He said they were all blinking on and off and were red, blue, green, and white. He knew it was not any type of conventional aircraft because the lights were stationary. Middleton said that he watched the object for 5 minutes before going inside his house to get his family to come out and see it. By then, it was gone. At midnight on September 19th of 1976, the Iranian Air Force began receiving calls about a mysterious light shining above the streets of Tehran. Fearing an enemy aircraft, generals separately dispatched 2 pilots to investigate. What happened next would go down in UFO history. As the first pilot approached the object, his aircraft systems completely failed. Aborting his mission, he turned back towards the city, only to have his plane return to full operational capacity. The second pilot suffered an even creepier fate. After picking the object up on radar, he prepared to shoot it down, only for the object to attack him instead. Allegedly, a bright light launched itself at his craft, missing only when he executed an evasive maneuver. What followed was a chase across Tehran's skies as the object knocked out communication systems, shorted out power supplies, and generally caused mayhem on the ground before it finally disappeared. Although no conclusive proof exists, today nearly all those involved apparently believe they encountered a genuine UFO. However, we'll never know if the Iranian government itself agreed. All records were destroyed or lost following the Islamic Revolution a mere 3 years later. The same year that Iran was chasing mysterious lights across the sky, the Canary Islands were having their own strange encounter. At 9:27 p.m. on June 22nd, Navy personnel reportedly noticed a strange light traveling along the horizon that later split into 2 distinct objects. However, even this weird little tale has nothing compared to the reports on the ground.
The government is lying to you. They lied about Watergate. They lied about a syphilis program in the 1950s. They lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So why is it so difficult to believe they are lying to you about the most important issue of the 21st century? Extraterrestrial contact will change the world forever. Knowledge of contact, even in the past, will have repercussions on every facet of our lives. It will affect our religions, our governments, and the way we think of ourselves. Once we have confirmation that we have been visited by people from another world, our world will never be the same. And yet, as we ponder these questions, information about the ET presence on Earth has been continuously flowing out from agencies and the public for over a millennium. Ancient tapestries depicting UFOs and aliens have been on display right before our eyes for centuries. And modern UFO sightings and reports arrive via our social media on a daily basis. A wealth of information is available today, so much so that most of it is simply ignored. If you want to hide something, hide it in plain sight.
On July 14th of 2001, a UFO on the New Jersey Turnpike was seen. Multiple witnesses, including a local off-duty police officer, watched in wonder as an array of yellow lights flew in formation in the suburban New Jersey area near New York City late in the evening and into the early morning of the following day. A short time later, at around 12:30 a.m., another witness, a police officer, Lieutenant Dan Tarrant, reportedly received a call at home from his 19-year-old daughter, who was out with friends and had seen strange lights in the sky. Tarrant told the Record and ABC News that he then stepped outside to take a look. As Tarrant subsequently told ABC News what he saw, he was astounded. 16 golden orange-colored lights, several in a V-shaped formation. Others were scattered around the V. Tarrant told the Record, a local newspaper, that the mysterious lights flashed across the sky for about 10 minutes, then faded one by one into the darkness.
Perhaps the UFO issue is too overwhelming. Leaked UFO data is not conveniently placed in one single location. There is far too much information and sources that have pieces of the puzzle. However, having it all is not necessary. We simply need to understand that there is a cover-up, and that this knowledge is being kept from us. That in itself is a reason to fear the issue. Whenever you sequester knowledge away, whoever controls that knowledge is under constant temptation to use it against the populace or for their own agenda. The fact that any extraterrestrial race can enter our atmosphere with impunity invites danger. We would never allow a foreign country to invade our airspace or take our citizens. So why are our governments allowing aliens to abduct us, fly over our cities, and conduct experiments on the people of our nations? Is it because they can do nothing about it? Or is it because they are aware of the extraterrestrials and even allied with them? Either scenario is frightening. All of the information gathered to date suggests that world governments are well aware of the ET presence, and that they have been aware for decades. You may ask yourself, why should I be concerned? Only you can answer that question. However, consider this. If the extraterrestrials are here for some nefarious plan, wouldn't you want to know? Or if they are simply here to observe us, are you comfortable being a lab rat? And if the government truly is working with aliens, then your tax dollars are supporting this effort, be it for the betterment of mankind, or its demise. At the very least, you should be informed of anything that affects you personally.
UFO reports are often dismissed until high-quality photos or video is produced. One such encounter took place in the 1950s, well before digital effects and photoshopping images. In Oregon, in May of 1950, a farmer named Mr. Trent saw a UFO at his farm outside McMinnville. According to Mr. Trent, his wife Evelyn first spotted the object, a silvery metallic disc. She was outside feeding her rabbits when it appeared in the early evening sky. She called out to her husband, who came outside and watched for a couple of minutes. He then went in and got a camera and took 2 high-resolution pictures before the object sped off to the west. The most striking thing lending credence to the story is the Trent's behavior. They never made any money off the photographs and actually had to be convinced to let them be published by a local reporter. Apparently, they were afraid of getting into trouble with the government. There are disagreements as to the veracity of the photos. The Condon Report, a 1967 study into UFO phenomenon conducted by the University of Colorado, concluded that relative photographic densities of objects in the photos suggest that the object was distant, meaning they were somewhat likely to be genuine. A much more recent examination concluded that the object's geometry was consistent with a small model hanging from a wire, but that wire has never been spotted in either high-resolution photo. And Evelyn and Paul Trent earnestly insisted until their deaths in 1997 and 1998, respectively, that the photos were of an actual UFO. It was 1957. Gordon Cooper was one of an elite band of test pilots at Edwards Air Force Base in California, in charge of several advanced projects, including the installation of a precision landing system. He would later become one of the most famous astronauts. He had a camera crew filming the installation when they spotted a saucer. They filmed it as it flew overhead, then hovered, extended 3 legs as landing gear, and slowly came down to land on a dry lake bed. The film crew were all professional cameramen, so the picture quality was very good. The camera crew managed to get within 20 or 30 yards of the UFO, filming continuously. It was a classic saucer, shiny silver and smooth, about 30 feet across. It was clear this was an alien craft. As they approached closer, it took off. When his camera crew handed over the film, Cooper followed standard procedure and contacted Washington to report the UFO. A high-ranking officer ordered Cooper, when the film was developed, to put it in a pouch and send it to Washington. Cooper watched the film, and the craft was clearly visible in the footage. When the Air Force later started Operation Blue Book to collate UFO evidence and reports, Cooper says he mentioned the film evidence. The film was never found. Project Blue Book and the government had covered up the whole incident. Why has the government kept its UFO secrets for so many years? Why cover up the most extraordinary evidence of a landed UFO from the public?
We are immersed in UFO information, yet determining what is truth is the issue. We don't have to prove every alien encounter, only one will suffice. And all of the best data and physical materials on UFOs and aliens is under government control. It isn't that we don't trust the government. The government doesn't trust us. Over the decades, UFOs have gone from a curiosity to a political quagmire. Agencies and the government would have a lot of explaining to do if they disclosed all they know about UFOs. Getting to the truth will be a delicate matter.
In July of 1991, people living in Mexico City reportedly spotted something strange in the sky at a time when they were expecting to see nothing more or less than a solar eclipse. However, they were met with something far more out of the ordinary, with numerous people saying they saw an unidentified flying object, with actual journalists reportedly having captured this bizarre flying object on video when trying to film the eclipse. Since this time, there have been numerous reports of UFOs in the area, but none more particular than the UFO spotted that summer by multiple people looking from various positions in the huge city. A few months later, a similar UFO was spotted during an air show in the area, but no explanation has ever been offered. Texas was livid with reports on January the 8th of 2008. The Stephenville lights made worldwide news. In the evening, about 40 local residents, including a local amateur civilian pilot and a police officer, witnessed a UFO that hovered over the farming community for about 5 minutes before streaking away into the night sky. We think of space as the final frontier, the last place for mankind to explore. But what if space isn't the final frontier? What if there are dimensions beyond physical space we haven't begun to acknowledge yet? And what if there are people who have already begun to explore this new realm of existence? It may sound bizarre, but there is evidence that physical space is not the end of our outreach into the heavens, but simply the beginning. Could aliens be visiting us from other realms? Could they use corridors through other dimensions to reach our tiny blue world? And can we expand our consciousness enough to understand these strange new realms? Are we on the cusp of a truly new way of contemplating the cosmos? And are there beings from these dimensions trying to make contact with us?
Until there is full UFO disclosure, we do not know the reasons why nations have been keeping this world-changing information secret. Since the late 1800s and the first alien encounter was officially observed, to modern-day UFO sightings and abductions, all Earth religions and governments have been withholding the truth from the people. They have accumulated a vast knowledge base on the subject, hidden physical evidence, and lied when confronted with questions. Ask yourself, why? The only answer you can possibly conceive should frighten you into demanding the truth. today is wrought with suspicion. Conspiracy theories abound, and each new televised incident brings forth a new litany of alternate ideas. However, the UFO issue has remained constant throughout history. Little by little, the truth of the ET presence on Earth leaks out and has always remained just under the radar of our lives. Our world is changing. We are becoming more receptive to the fact that we are not, nor ever have been, alone. All that is needed now is confirmation of the facts we already know and acceptance of the concept that we are part of a vast and growing universal society. What if I told you there is nothing to fear? What if I told you that disclosure is happening now? Would you do your part?